So what we do need to do is to overcome this dictatorship of short-term economic thinking. And I'll give you a very clear example for you to realize that we really are ruled by people who are, mad, if one really wants to, look at it in a sort of a realistic way. We seem to be ruled by the Flat Earth Society. Let me prove this to you. You have a number of economists, the Anglo-Saxon economists, who are advising our policy makers, and they are still listening to them, whose textbooks you can find, this includes Nobel laureates, etc., the same passage, which basically says the only sector in society which is really going to be negatively impacted by climate change is agriculture. But agriculture only represents about 3% of GDP in rich countries, in the USA for example. And therefore, even if 50% of agriculture is affected, that means a loss of 1.5% GDP. But in the meantime, of course, we will have grown much richer, so what does it matter? So they really seem to believe that we can eat money. If we just produce enough new computers and iPods and financial derivatives, then the fact that the agricultural sector has collapsed doesn't really matter from an economic point of view. We have therefore come to the conclusion that we desperately need new indicators, and not just being talked about, but we need to reach a situation where people don't worry anymore about whether GDP has gone up a couple of percent or gone down or stagnated, because it really isn't relevant to our quality of life and to our future. They worry about quite different indicators. Biodiversity is, of course, a crucial one. We also found that we need to make sure that the interest of future generations, who are of course not far in the future, we're talking about our children, about our grandchildren, are represented institutionally. We look always worldwide for existing good models. We found that in Hungary they have a parliamentary guardian, a parliamentary ombudsman for future generations who can stop laws and make sure that these are not implemented if he thinks they impact on the future, they are future foreclosing, until the Supreme Court has ruled on them. And we are now working to implement such a future guardian on the EU level, in the European Parliament, but also in other countries. We're also working on the trusteeship model for the global commons, looking at proposals how you could make sure that the global commons, our oceans, the atmosphere, etc., are protected, and you could imagine an income from these then being generated, fees on the abuses and use of the global commons, and these fees would then flow back into people's pockets. So people would feel directly that, if somebody is polluting, I'm losing out, not just environmentally, but even financially. We are looking at renewable energy promotion, because every day the sun shines and we are not using it to the maximum potential, to its maximum potential. We are wasting it. This is a huge waste. The sun, the wind of yesterday cannot be used anymore tomorrow. We need to change our economic cost-benefit analysis to include this waste. Therefore we are promoting the fastest laws to spread renewable energies worldwide. We're looking at tax reform. You need to shift the tax base from taxing labor to taxing resources in order to sustain the transition to a sustainable economic system, to a steady-state economic system. We need a reform of the monetary system, no doubt. We need caps on salaries and bonuses. We need corporate law reform. We can't have this limited liability to the extent that has been introduced. But I think also we need a new education. We need to educate people now for social competence, for solidarity, for caring, for artistic abilities, and no longer just for jobs, which are increasingly going to be non-existent. Now we need good jobs, but it's quite clear that many of the jobs we are now educating for do not exist. It was, of course, the father of the original IT computer revolution, Norbert Wiener, who said already in 1948 that after this revolution, which has now gone a long way and which you are part of, many people will not have skills to offer which other people want to pay money for. And we have to adjust, I think, to that new reality. We have to realize that so far none of the institutions we are trusting to do this have really come up with realistic solutions, or they are too timid to implement them. If you look at the political right, the political left, there are interesting debates going on, but really nothing which is commensurate with this threat we are facing from this rule of short-term economics. You looked at NGOs, and somebody said mergers between NGOs are few and far between. Again, many interesting demands, much good work being done, but an alliance for change, working for the policy changes we now needed, does still not exist. And lastly, business. You look at the most progressive business organization there, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And if you look at the latest Vision 2050 document, it reads like a fairy tale. 9 billion people are going to come together, everybody is going to eat as much meat as they want, fly as many times as they want. I mean, it's totally unrealistic. Natural limits make sure that is not so. The water we need, about 15,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of veal, means not that we all have to become vegetarians, but it certainly means that we cannot keep on increasing and even having the same level of meat production and meat consumption. So I think the conclusion I would like to send to you is that each one of us, each one of you, is challenged. We can no longer rely on anybody else to solve these problems for us. Each one of us can make an absolutely crucial difference. And I've seen many examples in these years of awarding Livelihood Award recipients, how what change one person or a small group of people can achieve. And I would encourage you always to see that what you're doing today, every day, the decision you take, the decision we take every day to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, can actually make a huge difference and ensure that the fear of the German philosopher of hope, Ernst Bloch, does not come true. Ernst Bloch once wrote that the price for human freedom is the danger that the great historical moment may encounter too small a human race, may encounter a people not up to the challenge. I think we have the opportunity to be up to the challenge, so let's do it.